What does that mean? Claire asked.
It is as I have just said. The person named Prophet Altacia does not exist in this world.
So does that mean that the illnesses of Emalua and the people are not the result of a curse placed on Altacia?
That is correct.
Solete quietly answered Feros' question.
So then, what is the cause of Emalua's illness?
It's probably some kind of epidemic.
And can it be cured?
Unfortunately, we don't know anything about that.
Solete shook his head apologetically. Feros leaned back in his chair. Feros wondered why he had come all the way and whether he had been manipulated by the old woman, and he lost his strength.
I had come so far, and now everything was back to square one. Does the person named Altacia really not exist?
There's no doubt about that.
Solete replied firmly, as Feros looked down and confirmed again. But then what was that the crustone of Altacia and Ibiza that we saw earlier? Asked Claire. Solete clasped his hands in front of his face and looked Claire in the eyes.
When we investigated, there was no crustone named Altacia anywhere. She doesn't exist in the first place, so it's only natural that there would be no information about her.
That can't be. We saw it with our own eyes. You guys must have just overlooked something. Please look into it again. What the hell is going on? I don't understand. Claire lamented, shaking her head from side to side dramatically.
What about the information about Ibiza? Have you seen it?
Elandra jumped in and asked. In contrast to Claire, Elandra was calm.
Of course we've looked into the information about Ibiza as well.
What was it about?
After she went to the surface world, all of the information up to that point was recorded.
All of it? When we looked, only a portion of it was left, said Claire.
In that information, Ibiza spoke about Altacia, right? If Altacia doesn't exist, does that mean Ibiza lied?
Feros asked. Solete stared back at Feros for a moment, then said.
No, Ibiza never mentioned anything about Altacia.
What do you mean?
Feros asked, unable to understand what Solete was saying.
Didn't Ibiza say that Altacia was responsible for Ibiza's blinding and the people's illnesses? We needed to kill Altacia to break the curse, and to do that, Ibiza told me I needed the Black Dragon Stone, which is why I'm here now. The information we saw in the cruststone earlier said the same thing.
Claire nodded in agreement.
If I hadn't been told by Ibiza, I would never have known about the person called Altacia. Besides, if that's the case, why did I come here to look for the Dragon Stone?
It's true that you came to the Teos to look for the Black Dragon Stone, as instructed by Ibiza, but that wasn't to kill a fictional character called Altacia.
Feros glared at Solete, who completely denied his opinion. Staring back at those eyes, Solete continued.
According to Ibiza's information, she was concerned that under the rule of the current king, many of the people would be used as much as they could be used, and would eventually become fated to die. So she believed that by using the Black Dragon Stone, she could awaken the people, and encourage them to rise up on their own. However, she herself could no longer return to the underground world, and so she appointed you, Feros. She said the same thing in your cruststone, you agreed, and that is why you came to the Teos.
Everyone turned to Feros.
What on earth is this incomprehensible story? It makes it seem as though I'm making things up.
That's what we've found from our investigation. In fact, from the information we can currently find, the story about Altacia is something you started telling after you came to this world. So to speak, it's a fabrication of your own making.
Hearing that, Feros no longer had the will to argue.
Everything is different from what I have actually experienced. Who could be manipulating the information in this way, and for what purpose?
There is no information about Ibiza's life in the Teos, and she can no longer return to the underworld. But is it possible for her to be a member of the Dark Forces?
Solete looked at Elandra in shock, as if it was an unexpected question. Then he said, "No way," and shook his head.
That's not true. If that were the case, we wouldn't just let her go to the surface world. The reason the cruststone when she was in the underground world doesn't exist is because she herself applied to the central office to have the information deleted, and permission was granted. In exchange, the central office presented a condition that she must never set foot in the underground world again.
I don't know anymore what's true and what's a lie, Claire said with a sigh, resting her chin on her hand. But it's true that we saw Altacia and Ibiza's cruststone earlier, and it's also true that they were deleted. We wouldn't lie about something like that. Before that, Pharos came to this world without knowing anything, so there's no way he would lie. Solete tilted his head slightly at Claire's opinion. The gesture could be interpreted as neither an affirmation nor a denial. Anyway, someone must have some kind of motive and is doing something so incomprehensible, right? You should first try to find out who is doing it and why, before you start suspecting us. If you don't, I feel like something really scary might happen. Claire shrugged, and Solete took a deep breath.
As I have been saying, we are not doubting you. We are simply stating the facts based on the information that Crustone has. And when a problem arises, we tend to interpret Crustone's information as fact, rather than the opinion of the person involved. I would like you to understand that point.
Solete said, looking around at the group.
So, regarding the discrepancy between what you said this time and what was actually said in Crustone. Normally we would take what was said in Crustone to be the facts. However, in doing so, we also found some points suspicious. That is why we are now listening to your story.
Of course there are points that you found suspicious. They are all different from the facts. Claire snapped at Solete's words. So, what was it that made you suspicious? Claire asked, and Solete nodded in response.
As I said before, we researched all of your cruststones before meeting you. And when we did that, Pharos, in your cruststone, we found no intention behind the story you told about Altacia. Usually, when someone makes up a story to tell someone, they put together a story with some kind of ulterior motive in mind, but that wasn't the case with you. You suddenly brought up the story about Altacia, without any context. Also, in your cruststones, the reason you came to room 25, floor 1648, building 3312, was to see the cruststone of Ibiza only. But if you had really seen the cruststone of Ibiza, I don't think you would be here right now.
Solete said, looking straight into Pharos' eyes.
What does that mean?
Pharos asked, and Solete started to say, that means, but then stopped.
No, I cannot reveal the details of the information from me. If you are concerned, please check it out for yourself later.
Pharos, annoyed by Solete's words, said, don't mess with me, I have a right to ask, and tried to grab him, but Claire stepped in to stop him. It's okay, Pharos, let's go see it later, no worries. As long as you're here, time won't pass. Claire comforted Pharos, and he reluctantly sat back down in his chair.
So, what are these speculations you mentioned?
Alondra interjected. She was as calm and elegant as ever. Solete, who had been leaning back, said, yes, and straightened up.
Well, if what you're saying is true, then there's a chance that Ibiza was being controlled by someone. Someone who needs the Black Dragon Stone.
Is that someone from the Dark Forces? Claire asked, and Solete took a slow breath.
At this stage, I can't say for sure, but I would say that the possibility is high. Ibiza was manipulated by someone and came to believe that she had been banished from this underground world by a fictional character called Altacia. And that she had even had her eyes gouged out. And so, I think that the desire for revenge was imprinted on her, believing that she could achieve revenge if she only had the Black Dragon Stone. And so, she ordered Pharos to retrieve the Dragon Stone.
Solete added, this is purely my own speculation, though.
But even if we still don't know who it is that needs the Black Dragon Stone, why would that person manipulate Ibiza and use Pharos to come to this underworld to retrieve the Dragon Stone?
Solete stared back at Alondra, who had asked the question, without saying a word.
I mean, if you need the Black Dragon Stone, you don't need to go through all that trouble and just come and get it yourself, right?
Solete nodded a couple of times, as if he understood the question.
That's the reason why I said earlier that it's highly possible that the person controlling Ibiza is a member of the dark forces.
Solete said, glaring at Elandra.
You are aware, of course, that in order to obtain a dragon stone, you must have made a pact with a dragon at some point in the past, right?
Elandra nodded.
But you noble dragons should not be able to make a pact with a human who belongs to the dark forces, right? Your DNA is structured in such a way that you cannot make a pact with a human who has even the slightest darkness in their heart. Therefore, it is virtually impossible for a human who belongs to the dark forces to obtain a dragon stone. And the person who sent Pharos to retrieve the black dragon stone. It is highly likely that the person is someone who would not be able to make a pact with a dragon, in other words, a human who belongs to the dark forces.
Elandra objected to Solete's explanation.
But I've heard that even among us dragons there are races that are connected to darkness. Perhaps the humans of the dark forces have made a pact with those dragons?
That's certainly true.
Solete nodded.
It is true that there are dark dragon tribes that can make pacts with humans of the dark forces. However, those who make a pact with a dragon of the dark dragon tribe will have their life force sucked away by that dragon until they die. This is because in order to make a pact with a dark dragon, one must sacrifice their life. And when obtaining a dragon stone, it depends on the amount of energy in the stone, but no matter how little energy it contains, your life force will still be reduced to some extent, right?
Claire answered Solete's question with a yes. I've been to get dragon stones a few times for school practical training, but afterwards I always end up bedridden and unable to move for a while.
If a human who has made a pact with a dark dragon were to do something like that, what do you think would happen?
Well, they might die young. Solete smiled at Claire's answer.
That's exactly right. For a human who has made a pact with a dark dragon, obtaining a dragon stone is literally a matter of risking one's life. What's more, when it comes to the energy of a black dragon stone, it is so great that it puts the life of even an ordinary human at risk. For a human, even at the cost of one's life, is impossible who has made a pact with a dark dragon to obtain something like that.
Is that why they sent Pharos to retrieve it?
Elandra asked, and Solete nodded back. It's just a hypothesis, Solete said, and Claire replied, I think it's probably correct.
But why does it need to be Pharos? I think it's far too uncertain to order such an important mission to him. Actually, aren't their intentions about to become clear?
Solete responded to Elandra's opinion by saying, probably, and began to explain.
Retrieving the black dragon stones is an uncertain mission from the beginning. That's because, although the black dragon stones are said to lie somewhere in each of the world's 5 major cities, excluding the surface world, no one knows where they are. None of us in the central office know, and not even the Galactic Federation or the Space Federation know. When a certain time comes, they are discovered one after another, as if by guidance, and the 5 stones are drawn together of their own accord. And at that time, an enormous amount of energy is released that induces a dimensional ascension. And as I said earlier, if that energy is misused, it could destroy the Earth. The person who used Ibiza to give the order to Pharos must have been well aware that it is uncertain. However, I think that it is precisely because they don't know when the time will come that they have taken action and are waiting for the opportunity. And Pharos was the perfect choice for the mission.
Why was Pharos the perfect choice? Claire asked, resting her chin on her hand.
Because, even though Pharos has made a pact with the dragon, he knows nothing about this world, and it may have been easy to motivate him to save his fiancée.
I see, but the black dragon stone can't be found until the time comes, right?
Yes, that's right. In other words, those who are able to obtain the black dragon stone can be said to be the chosen ones.
So, has there been anyone other than Pharos who has been ordered by the forces of darkness to retrieve the black dragon stone? Claire continued to ask questions, and Solete shook his head and said, No, I don't think there has been anyone like that before, and looked startled.
In other words, the fact that he has begun to take action may mean that Zalnaban is ready.
Solete muttered, and looked at Middle.
Shall we go back to the station for a while?
Solete nodded in response to Middle's question.
That's right. It seems we need to report this as soon as possible.
Then, Solete turned to Pharos and the others.
We are sorry. We will return to the central office for now. Your testimony was very helpful.
The two of them bowed deeply and said, "Thank you very much for your cooperation." "What happened all of a sudden?" Claire asked as the two stood up.
Well, if the hypothesis I just mentioned is correct, it's possible that Zalnaban sent someone other than Pharos to retrieve the Black Dragon Stone, and
Solete started to say, but then shook his head.
No, anyway, I'm very sorry for causing you all so much trouble and for being so selfish with my words, but we'll be heading back to the central office for now.
Wait a moment, you've already explained this much, so please explain everything properly. Claire tried to stop them, and Solete looked down as if he was thinking. Finally, Solete looked up and said,
No, this is merely my speculation, so please don't tell anyone. If Zalnaban begins to act, there is a possibility that the dark forces will begin to invade Earth in earnest. However, there is no need to worry. There have been such movements by the dark forces in the past, but we have been able to thwart them all.
Solete said with a forced smile.